Right, a very good afternoon again. Here we are with another leadership webinar. And yeah, we're going to continue. I found two quotes actually, and I think it's quite relevant to what we're trying to achieve. The first one is a little bit different. It says, remember, if you're not speaking it, you're storing it, and that gets heavy. And I think that's quite fantastic. We've got so much to share as human beings, and these platforms are really that opportunity. You know, we cannot become what we need by remaining what we are. So again, thank you for people that have shown interest in this. Thank you for people that have shared these. You know, as many people as we can inspire as possible, the better it is. And today I have a very, very good friend of mine. We work closely together every single day, and he's really a pillar that I lean on a lot. We've had plenty of leadership conversations together, and yeah, he's got a lot to offer. The nickname I actually give him is the value man, because he actually that's exactly what he does. He instills values in so many lives, particularly high school boys, but also to a lot of the staff and a lot of the people he interacts with. So yeah, without further ado, I really want to introduce a good buddy, Waylon Murray. How are you, my man?
Thanks, Gav. Quite a humbling intro, but I'll take it. You obviously received my money in the post, so thank you for your kind words. It's always lovely to chat to you, and obviously it's been enjoyable watching all your webinars. So happy to help out.
No, thanks, bud. So I'll just give a little introduction if you don't know who Waylon is. First of all, he is doing similar fantastic work with leadership webinars. So if you haven't followed him on Facebook or on Instagram, please do so. You can follow him through Lead Together. He's also had some fantastic speakers. So yeah, as many people, again, as we can get listening to these webinars, the better that we are growing as individuals. So Waylon is a massive family man, a loving husband, and a father to his younger boy, who I'm sure is going to follow in his footsteps in terms of growing to be the man that you are. Waylon was the head of Westville Boys High School in 2003, and he has over 100 Super Rugby caps and over 150 first-class games. He's represented the Sharks, the Lions, and the Southern Kings, which is a massive, massive achievement. The people I'm sure that, and we're going to touch on to it just now, is he's represented the Springbok rugby team in 2007. And today he is currently the director of sports at Westville Boys High School, and obviously very involved in the rugby setup at the school. So, Waylon, without further ado, I've got a couple of difficult questions that I'm going to throw at you, but I think there's a lot of questions that a lot of people have on the tip of their tongue, and you are definitely the man with a lot of insight that can give us some valuable insight to these questions. So the first one is, you know, many schoolboys aspire to be a Springbok rugby player. You know, we read about them, we dream about it. Some boys go to bed and dream about being a Springbok on the big stage. Can you give some insight of what's it like to be a Springbok? You know, particularly the environment, the team culture. What's it like playing under these immense pressures, and obviously the coaching staff that you work under?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a unique experience when you join different cultures. So I've been privileged to play for many different teams. So in saying that, I think any team culture that's successful, you need buy-in from everyone. So that filters right from the top. In major franchises, it goes all the way down from your sponsors to your CEO, and that infiltrates down to the players on the rugby field. And obviously, I think every city is unique. Every rugby franchise is unique, and I think every year it changes in terms of what the culture is. Obviously, your deep-rooted values remain the same. Obviously, like the Sharks have been around for many, many years, but I think every year can be different, and you have to reassess the theme that you deliver for that next season to keep it fresh and to keep the boys motivated. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to be a part of some really big franchises. The Sharks was a great one to be part of because it was something new. It was the first time where Dick Muir had taken over and he had implemented club rugby trials. So it was the first time that a lot of people got a lot more opportunities, myself included. So I think when I joined the Sharks in the start of my professional career, we were very lucky to have a nice balance of youngsters and older heads. And I think we had a lot of juniors. I mean, myself, Brad Barrett, JP Peterson were all 19, 20 years old, which at the time was never heard of. So I think it added something unique to that culture at the Sharks. And obviously in that brand of rugby that we played was very exciting in 2007, obviously coming short in the final. But I think that culture was very much rooted in family, and I think that's a common trend across the board in many successful franchises that I've been involved in. And I think you have to have that family environment and obviously that trust, because it's very difficult to go onto the battlefield if you don't have that trust and that energy that's synced. And obviously, being in a family environment, you love the players you're playing with and you trust them. So for me, I think that underlying common trend would definitely be family, and most of the places had that combination. Obviously, every different. Said the Sharks when I started was a group of a lot of youngsters and a lot of experienced old heads. There kind of wasn't a middle ground. And then if I look at the Kings, that culture was based on the first of its kind. Obviously, the Kings, it was their first Super Rugby season. So for Port Elizabeth, our underlying theme was creating a new legacy for Port Elizabeth and for bringing a franchise there and putting Port Elizabeth on the world stage through Super Rugby. So I think that culture was very special because it was the first of its kind. And I think we really felt we were playing for communities and playing for the city. Obviously, rugby's been around in Port Elizabeth for many years, but obviously it was a long process getting them into the Super Rugby setup. So I think there was a lot of excitement around that franchise. And yeah, it obviously it didn't end well because it was the first year. But ideally, I think the common goal was just to put Port Elizabeth on the map, even though we didn't continue and the Lions replaced us in the relegation game that year. I think it was something unique in terms of building the start of something great. And it's good to see them still continuing to play Pro 14 rugby, and they're still getting that opportunity to play rugby on a high stage. So like I say, for me, culture can be built up of many different things, but the number one thing for me is obviously getting that family environment and getting that trust within that group of players in terms of what you're trying to sell and where you're trying to go as a collective.
No, fantastic. Thanks, Waylon. I mean, and I love what you say about trust. I think that goes not only in a sporting world, but certainly in a business world too. I mean, we all working in teams. That's the success of human beings. So just give us maybe if I can just touch on that, if you can give us maybe a quick little example. I mean, you got players coming from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups, different religious groups, etc. How do you build a trust quickly going into a massive tournament like that?
I think it's hugely important the head coach and the senior management establish a clear guideline of the goals they're trying to achieve. So once the players understand and they have a clear vision of what they are trying to achieve during the season, then it makes it a lot easier. It doesn't matter what background you're from, you're all part of a collective trying to move in the same direction. So for me, and I think as senior players, and I've been obviously a youngster and as a senior player in a group, especially when I joined the Kings at a later stage, there's always going to be some doubt in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And as a senior player, you have to get that buy-in from everyone to understand that, look, this is what we've all decided on. It might not be the right thing, but we kept during season and try and change maybe our style or our culture or things we're doing within our week. But if we're not all buying into the vision, it's going to be a hard road. So you will get a lot of doubts within a group, especially if it's new or they come from a different culture and come into a new culture. But it's to make them feel secure enough to trust the process of what the vision is for that specific team. So for me, it's just making sure that through your communication and that all the players are saying the same things day in and day out and staying positive and backing up the coach and backing up the captain, and it makes easier for that vision to be realized.
Brilliant. Thank you, Waylon. And I think it's so important, like, a lot of the speakers and particularly yourself, that is, you've had first-hand experience of this. So I think that goes a long way when young sportsmen are listening to, I know schoolboy coaches are often also trying to instill the trust, etc. But when someone like you speaks about it, it speaks volumes. So thank you for that. Waylon, let's just quickly focus on schoolboy rugby quickly, which I know you also involved. You're obviously the director of sport at a traditional boys' school. COVID-19's had a massive impact in the world, and this is obviously on the tip of the tongue of everybody in the world at the moment. One thing that has had an impact is obviously sports in general. Lately in South Africa, there's been a lot of talk in the media about grade 12 boys, current grade 12, so 2020 grade 12s, who are considering repeating grade 12 next year in 2021, so that they are hopefully able to play rugby. And then that'll give them maybe a professional contract, a foot in the door to some of the rugby unions, and even a bursary to universities. What are your feelings on this topic?
Yeah, I think it is quite a weighty question, and I think both sides of the argument probably have valid reasoning behind it. But for me, the most important thing is making sure that you try and salvage your academic calendar. So I do understand that they're not having a rugby season or no completion of a rugby season hinders your exposure to major organizations. I understand that's the reality for a lot of players, especially maybe ones on the fringes who haven't had any offers currently. But for me, I always think in this day and age, if you're good enough and you have the right people managing you, then you should be able to get your chance. Your talent should get you in the front door. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter where you start. You don't necessarily have to start at a big union. But if I'm talking about rugby specifically, for me personally, I would rather honor the academic calendar and try and finish my career at school, tick that box, and then make sure that I'm proactive during this lockdown. A lot of these boys will have agents or people guiding them, mentoring them, and my hope is that these people are getting them exposed to the relevant stakeholders around the country to get them the adequate exposure that they need. But for me, I still feel that you're still a schoolboy, and I think it's in your biggest priority is to see the academic calendar through. And I know teachers are working so hard to make sure that the boys stay on track. So for me, do your due diligence, make sure that you have the right people that you can talk to, and get in touch with people. I mean, we do have a lot of resources. A lot of these boys have a lot of film footage on themselves from last year. Grade 11, grade 12, you should have an idea of who that person is. If I'm looking from the Sharks or scouting from the Lions, I will have a good idea watching some form of this boy that I can adequately make a good decision in terms of, I think he's a good investment for my particular franchise. So for me personally, I wouldn't repeat the grade. I would honor the academic calendar, and I'd make sure that they are proactive in this time and make sure that they are getting their footage, their brand out to the relevant parties.
No, thanks, Waylon. I think those are very, very wise words, and I 100% agree with you. And I think often what we see in the media about this COVID-19 often is all negative doom and gloom. But I think one thing that and I don't disagree with a lot of the stuff that's been said, but I think one of the things, the positive that we can certainly flip out of this is it's given us a lot of time to stop, to reflect. And as you say, it's given these top sportsmen time to engage on the academics, to put a lot of effort into those academics, to evaluate their goals as a sportsman, and to try and find different ways of trying to, establish themselves as a sportsman going next year into the big wide world. So yes, thank you. That's very wise words. I'm going to tap into you from a player's perspective, and now as a director of sport, again at a traditional boys' school. There's a big contentious issue on specializing in sports at a young age. I know that we have a lot of boys come into our high school setup, and they'll get involved in as many sports as they possibly can in a grade 8 level. Then they start specializing in one specific sport, be it cricket, be it hockey, be it rugby, whatever sport. What's your opinion on this topic in specializing at a very young age in one specific sport?
Yeah, look, it's also quite a difficult question, and like I mentioned earlier, I think there is the opinion on this matter is split, and I think it's a great question. But me personally, obviously, I came from a background of playing multiple sports. I mean, everyone knows me as a rugby player, but in high school, I did athletics, I did soccer, I did cricket, all at a high level. And only up until grade 11, I wasn't sure if I wanted to pursue either cricket or rugby. And then, fortunately for myself, I went the rugby route. I'm not sure cricket would have led me to a professional career, but I just find that it can only benefit you from mentally refreshing you. I just feel kids have a lot on their plates, especially in high school, and they're trying to manage a whole lot of different boxes within their school calendar, and to academics and term 1 sports, term 2 sports, maybe it's cultural activities. So it is a difficult question. But for me, I would say don't specialize. Try your hand at different things. I think after a long rugby season, I used to look forward when I was in high school, look forward to the soccer season, just because it kind of gave me that mental refresher that distracted me away from the intensity of rugby, and I could apply my mind to a different creative outsource. So for me, I definitely think that kids should be doing multiple sports. I think, yeah, there is a lot of research saying one against the other, and maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. But I'd say from a burnout point of view, and which I deeply care about from a mental well-being, I do feel that if a boy really wants to play multiple sports, he should be allowed to go that avenue, because I think it can only benefit him. And I think there's always that fear that a boy might get injured. Maybe he's your star rugby player, your star soccer player, he plays basketball and he might get injured. But I think that myth is debunked. I think you can get injured in multiple different ways. So for me, their conditioning and the way they recover and the way they do their rehab and the way they do their preseason work, how focused they are in the gym and ticking the small details, they should not be getting injured. Doesn't matter what sporting code they play. So from my point of view, I definitely have to say that personally, in my point of view, I think kids should play a multitude of sports, especially in high school, because it is a hectic time in their lives, and they are having to deal with a lot of emotional issues in terms of where the energy is being pulled. So for me specifically, I think it's a good output for them to be involved in a different maybe culture, different skill set, and also maybe even possibly meeting new people. You're always playing with the same set of people, but now you get to maybe mix with different personalities, and that can only improve your character and your resilience in terms of your sporting career, whatever you choose after school.
Thanks, Wade. And I think you touched on the end there was beautiful is, the more you get involved in different team environments, I think the more values you're going to learn, which, You know, at a time that we're in now, and we spoke earlier about how sportsmen are, what are they going to do in this pandemic that we're in? I think the values are so important that you've learned more than anything else. That's going to stay you for good stead in business, in sport, wherever. If I
Yeah.
could just touch on that, just on your expertise, and again, there's so much footage on this, but so much material on this. When should a sportsman becomes a single sport specific? You know, let's just talk about a prodigy soccer player, for example. At what age do you think that he should now, okay, this is time to now specialize in that sport?
I think it's obviously as they develop, that relationship, especially in a school environment, I think is very important. I mean, every school has directors in different sports. So for me, if I know who are my talented, exceptional boys with high potential, I would have started that communication with them already, not steering them into one avenue per se, but as they get older and as they mature, um, you don't want to rush them into thinking too far ahead because you want them to stay in the present. Because when they stay in the present, they don't miss the detail and they improve. And I had a good chat with Brad Moore the other day where he says there's obviously so many minutes that incorporate in your week before the 80 minutes that you play on the rugby field. So I think kids get caught up in thinking about this sporting code and where I'm going to be in 5 years and where I'm going to be in 10 years, that they miss that room for growth. And that's why I always tell kids, you gotta really make sure that you make your practices count, because that's where you actually improve. When you stay present and you improve and make sure that practice is 110%. Um, so, so for me, I think you don't want to put that pressure on them, but you can gently have that conversation when they're coming towards the end of their school career. And obviously, naturally, I think they will have some understanding. And if you've got a good relationship with the boy, he would already be asking you these questions. And then it can be a dialogue in terms of how you address that question when it comes up at the appropriate time. But for me, I think it's a constant communication feedback from the kids. Once they have that trust and that relationship with you, then you can sit down with them and distinguish what are the pros and cons. Um, what are some of the things you have to be aware of if you choose this route or if you choose this particular route. But like I say, if the boys are open and honest and they're continuing to talk to their coaches, their mentors, their directors, by the time they get to grade 11 matric, I think they'll already have a good understanding of who they are and where they want to go.
No, great. Then, Waylon, you touched just now on resilience and the importance of values. Now, we always hear the romantic side of professional sport, you know, the signing the autographs, the playing on the big stage, scoring the tries. Let's talk about the sort of stuff that isn't spoken about, and that's life after being a professional sportsman. Let's face it, a sports professional era can only last a certain amount of years to a certain age, whatever sport you're playing in. What advice can you give young players who are entering a professional setup or dreaming of playing professional sport about how and what they can do to prepare for the years after professional sport?
I think it goes back to also having a good support structure. So the people that you choose to be around you, friends, family, your agents, they all play a crucial role in terms of helping you with the next chapter of your life. And I think that is the most important thing. You don't want to do it on your own. You want constant feedback. You want to lean on different people with different perspectives, so that you can get a broader sense of when that time comes, you've done your due diligence in terms of what my next move is going to be. So I think it should be a constant conversation throughout your career, where you invest your money, where you invest your time, where you invest your academic resilience. These are all things that you need to be realistic about, because I think you get caught up in the whirlwind of playing professional rugby. And you don't realize the time frame is so short. I mean, you might say 10 to 12 years is quite long, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a small segment out of your entire life's journey. So for me, the most important thing is to surround yourself with good people. Obviously, your priority is playing rugby, and you've got to enjoy and love what you're doing, or you shouldn't be doing it. So that's your number one thing. But at the same time, you have to have people doing the heavy lifting or preparing you for after rugby. So I think that's the most important thing. Who are the people that are going to be in your corner throughout your career, through the bad times, the good times, the times when you feel like you want to quit? You need people that are going to constantly be realistic with you, be positive with you, and also help you understand bigger picture and understand what your worth is in this particular time, which is playing rugby. When we cross the next bridge, then we'll be there to meet you, to help guide you to the next part of your life. So for me, my biggest thing is expand your conversation with different people, not just rugby people. Speak to different types of people, mentors, people that are going to guide you and instill ideas in your mind to better prepare you. Because sometimes you can chat to someone you haven't spoken to before, and a penny might drop in your head, and it might change a perspective of how you think about something different. You've never had that perspective before. So the more people that you open a dialogue with or a narrative with, then you can create a better sense of where you're going, especially in your life, and obviously for after rugby, because it is difficult. As a rugby player, everything is preordained for you. You know what time you have to get up, you know what you have to eat, you know what time practices, you know what the game plan is, you know what's expected. All these things are plotted out for you. When you get into the real world, you have to reevaluate and find a new motivation about what's going to get you out of bed, what's going to give you that passion, what's going to give you that happiness going forward. So I think ultimately you just need a good support cast around you and good people that are going to inspire you and help you transition, because it's not going to be easy, and that's okay to feel that way. You just have to make sure that once that transition happens, you're going to realign yourself with a new destiny, a new path, a new vision.
Yeah, great. Just, I think that if anything, I think a lot of boys are going to take a lot out of that, and professional sportsmen. So thank you. And I think building a team is so important. You're now a director of sports, and a lot of, ex-players going to business, going to corporate or whatever. How is playing rugby, and how is you as a professional sportsman, the values that you learned, how did that help you now today as the director of sport, running sports at a big boy school?
I think it's difficult when you're in a rugby franchise. You're dealing with a lot of egos and a lot of personalities and a lot of different characters, which is awesome because you need sportsmen that are highly competitive and execute and want to win. If anyone wants to see the extreme of that, they can go watch Michael Jordan's The Last Dance on Netflix, and it kind of gives you an understanding of the other side of the extreme, that win at all costs, that sort of mentality. So for me, I used it as a growth for being in a rugby fraternity in different environments. I think it taught me to be selfless, to be a team player, um, to to see the best in others. Because when you're a youngster and you come into professional rugby, you think it's all about you, because you're playing in front of big crowds when you were playing in front of 2,000 people. But when you start to have that mental shift in terms of, yes, it's so nice to celebrate with someone who scored a try. It's so nice to see a friend of mine get his 50th cap, his 100th cap. These sort of accolades where you're just proud of people because you maybe played with them, you were part of their journey. So I think for me that teamwork and that selflessness, I think, is something that it didn't start off that way when I was playing rugby, but near the end, all I wanted to do was invest my time and my talents to upskilling the youngsters who were starting out in their career, and I was at the end of my career. So it was a good way to give back and to maybe offer advice and to keep their feet on the ground. So for me, the teamwork, and obviously working in high pressured environments, especially rugby, is as high pressure environments as you get. I mean, you get all the people watching you, and then you have to analyze your game. Then you're dealing with critics speaking about you during the week before you play a game and saying you this and you that. So if anything, it taught me to be resilient for sure, because it's good when it's good and you're the man, and when it's bad, it's hard to get up and to stay motivated for the next week's game, particularly if you've had a bad game. So it definitely taught me resilience, teamwork, selflessness, and near the end of my career, I think more often than not, it helped me to lessen my ego, which I find is a very important part of my job now. We're fortunate enough in the school environment to have so many different sporting codes. And my primary job is to make sure that every sport and every child that chooses his sport gets their time in the sun. And if they are enjoying it, then I'm enjoying it. It doesn't have to be rugby. It doesn't have to be hockey. It doesn't have to be cricket. It can be badminton, for instance. So being able to make sure that you can lead people and be of service to them, especially with different sporting codes, is the most beneficial thing I think or most rewarding thing I get every day, because it's no longer about you, the rugby player. It's about you making sure that everyone is being fulfilled every day, and that you are being a service to your sports staff and to the boys who you only have the privilege of having for a few short years. So you in that microscopic time to try and change a boy's life. So it's important to have that mindset, to let your ego listen and say, what can I do in this short amount of time, from 14 to 18 years old, to make sure this boy extracts all the potential he has and becomes a better person and a better human being when he leaves school, regardless if he plays professional rugby or professional sports. That's not the objective. We want to create better humans. I'll take a better human over a professional somebody any day of the week. And that's trying to manage those expectations with kids, especially that tend to look far ahead, and trying to let them understand that you don't have a crystal ball. Appreciate being in the present. A lot can happen. You might not have the career you wanted. You might not have things go your way. But if you're a better person or a better human being, you will contribute to the world long after your sporting career will allow.
No, wise words. And I think what the thing is just how you fascinated, how you can see the importance of leadership in sport, and the aspects that it teaches you through leadership. You know, as you said, you if you can get to that level of appreciating the person on the left and the right of you at all times, and influencing them and trying to grow them, it's amazing what comes back at you. I mean, you give the world your best, the world returns its favor. So yeah, it's nice to hear that, and it's good for the boys to understand that. And sport is the platform, as you say, to become a better human and to invest in lives of others. So yeah, thank you for what you're doing, and you certainly doing that with every boy that you come into contact with. If I can go into this, let's put your director of sport cap back on quickly. And school sports has certainly changed over the past decade or so. Become very competitive, especially between schools, and the marketing around results and all the other contentious issues dealing with parents, etc. I've often seen you get pulled in all different directions, and different headaches each and every single day. You know, how difficult it is for you as the director of sports at a big boys school to ensure that you get the balance, as you mentioned now, of grown, nurturing young men, and at the same time still ensuring that you pleasing all these other role players, the marketing, the parents, the results orientated. How do you get this balance right?
I think it helps. I mean, we've spoken about this. In the school environment, I think since I've arrived there, I think it's been 18 months, almost 2 years now. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of good people around me, yourself included, and like-minded people always will have a good direction and a good plan. And sometimes it's non-verbal. We kind of understand what we're doing. So we might not chat every day, but you have an idea of what my vision is and how the way I think. So I think it's having more people on board creatively, that align with your values and what you're trying to achieve, it makes it obviously a lot easier. So that when you do come, if there's a fork in the road or you need a problem solved, it's generally easier because you've got a good community of leaders within the school that you know that you can resolve a question or problem quite easily because you have a relationship with this person and because you agree on many of the same sort of values and leadership vision they have for a school. So for me, it's not working on an island. It's making sure, once again, to constantly take that feedback and learn from people. You can't be a closed book. Maybe you see something is this way, but four people are telling you, no, this is the correct answer. And sometimes you have to swallow your pride and understand that the bigger picture here is you've got people you trust that you can say, okay, well, I don't agree with this, but they're part of my leadership community. And I feel that I can trust them enough to make the right decision if I don't necessarily agree with it. So I think it's hugely important that you have a good family structure. And you touched on that in terms of team culture, but having that trust and having that family environment, especially within a school where we can bounce ideas off each other constantly. And we've come to each other with different problems at different stages, and it sometimes falls outside of our portfolio. But you might have a different relationship with another student, and I might be more effective at getting into a student's mind than you do, and vice versa. So it's that constant feedback and that constant communication and that constant trust that I think makes it a lot easier within a school environment to make sure that you stay humble and that you stay on course with what is the bigger picture in terms of what are we trying to achieve. It's not about me. What are we trying to achieve for these boys? And I think it makes it a lot easier. And I think it's a fascinating place to be in a school environment. This every day is different. It's exciting. Sometimes it can be stressful. Sometimes it can be happy. But you never know what's around the corner. And I feel it's an exciting way to look at it because you get an opportunity to stretch and to grow. Maybe you're dealing with a problem you've never dealt before in your entire life, but now you're having to deal with. So hence growth happens. So I feel I've grown a lot more during this small period in terms of my rugby career because I've been constantly enamored with different problems and different things you have to try and figure out. So for me, I find it very exciting to try and solve these problems and trying to help people.
Great. And then, well, and if lastly, I can touch just, how important is a good coach in the life of a sportsman, and maybe you can share with us if there's any particular coaches who have had a massive influence on your life.
Ooh, what a difficult question. It's difficult in the sense that rugby has shifted, and I don't blame a lot of coaches. When I played rugby, when I started out, to where we are currently, the way we see Eddie Jones coaching, Rassie Erasmus coaching, Brad Moore, all these people have incredibly high EQ. And that wasn't always the case. And I think that was just how rugby developed. I think it was a much harder approach in the 90s and the 2000s, whereas now I think coaches are investing a lot more in relationships with their players. What makes them tick, investing in the hearts of the player. And I think I touched on Brad Moore, but for me, he's got an incredible high EQ. And it's not so much the content he used to give me on a day-to-day basis in terms of training, but it was from conversations after trainings, in between video sessions, having a coffee somewhere. I mean, these organic types of conversations where you get to learn about someone, I feel that is the way to really find the heart of someone and to make them play for you. And I think Brad Moore, he has EQ in infamous, in incredible bounties of wealth in terms of his emotional intelligence. And he just has a way of extracting the best out of different people. and making you believe whatever you think you are, he'll make you believe that you're better than what you think you are. And I think that's a trick. Everyone in their mind, there's a mental limit where you think you've hit your threshold, but a good coach can always take you past where you didn't think you could go, and that breakthrough that you were looking for. And I think Brad Moore and there's countless. I mean, you can scour the web for these coaches, and they're popping up more and more. And it's a beautiful time in terms of this movement of coaching style and investing in relationships. I think having a high EQ is something that every coach should aspire to, and I think it's something that can be taught. And for me, particularly, I think Brad Moore, and look, it's no surprise to me that, I mean, I met him at the Southern Kings 6 years ago, and now he's assistant All Black coach. So for me, that shows that people will continue to see the heart of someone, and that's what excites me for him and his career. Obviously, I'm a Springbok supporter, obviously, but I'd be very worried knowing a guy like Brad Moore is with the All Blacks with a high EQ, and he's going to invest and impart his knowledge, and definitely create a sense of family, just the same way he did at the Crusaders with the All Blacks.
No, Waylon, what a fantastic way to end the webinar on that note. You know, in the beginning of this webinar, when I started, I said to you that, you know, I lean a lot on you on a daily basis. And I think through this webinar, it's become extremely evident to whoever's watching this exactly why I do that. You know, you come with a wealth of knowledge. And, you know, I know this from a personal point of view, and I know everyone who's watching this will see it, is you speak to the heart. You're probably one of the most humble, well, you are one of the most humble men I know on the face of this earth. And you always invest in time. Never once have you ever said, sorry, I'm too busy, I got to do something else. And I know how busy you are every single day, getting pulled, as I said, in all different directions. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what you, if I can say for myself, for what you do for my leadership growth. And continue what you're doing. You know, you have a massive amount of EQ. And yeah, if we can change the lives of these young men like you are doing currently, you know, I think the rest of the world should worry about the Springboks and should worry about the leadership that's coming through in South African schools. And it's because of people like you. So, Waylon, thanks for your time. Thank you for giving up your knowledge. Thank you for sharing with everybody. I really, really appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, also just a huge thank you to you, Gavin. I hate when guys give me positive feedback, like you're saying. So it's very humbling to hear you say such kind words. But yeah, I think it's a unique time in our lives. And I think these interviews and a lot of the content that you've put out is going to be hugely beneficial. And I hope it continues post-COVID-19, which I'm sure it will be. And I love the movement you're creating. And I think it's very exciting times. Let's see the opportunity in the madness at the moment, and let's focus on creating a better world and changing people's lives, and helping grow leaders of the future, which I think's the ultimate goal. So thank you very much for creating that platform. Humbled to be on your Zoom interview.
Thanks, Waylon. Hopefully school starts soon so we can actually get together and discuss this over a cup of coffee. But thank you again and keep well, bud.
Cheers, buddy. Bye.